are surprisingly vocal, and like all other otters, they enjoy themselves a great deal. These otters are up to 5 or 6 feet long and probably about 75 pounds or so, but giant otters max out at about 8 feet long, so they can get quite giant. Now, these otters have gotten quite used to people being around them, but it wasn't very long ago that they were hunted. As a matter of fact, during the 1960s, more than 1,000 otters were killed each year in Amazonian Brazil alone. Nowadays, it's estimated that the entire population of giant otters is only about 1,000.
Yeah.
If you hear a bark, it's usually an alert to the pack members to some kind of danger. A growl might serve as a warning, and then there's a soft coo that you hear that's intended to be sort of a soothing sound. If a jaguar catches an otter on land, he's probably going to kill it. On the other hand, if the otters can lure the jaguar into the water, and jaguars can swim quite well, the pack of otters can kill the jaguar. Here, Mom is cleaning up Junior, and Junior looks completely disgusted by the event. Most folks find it easy to watch otters for long periods of time. They're endlessly fascinating, they have boundless energy, and they have about as much fun as any animal on the planet. The otter's diet is almost totally made up of fish. And this is one of the few animals on the world for which it is quite possible to realistically say they eat piranha for lunch. If you hear some howling in the background, that howling is from howler monkeys. They can be heard for a couple of miles. Although giant otters will eat just about any kind of fish, they do have a favorite. Their favorite kind of fish to eat is catfish.
Monkey? Yep.
The otters have become so used to people that if you've got a boatload of fish and you're willing to share, the otters will come right up to your boat.
Oh.
Dapat sih kita.
Oh, no, the other one.
Essa onda mesmo.
Já tá bom, tá bom.
Depois a gente pega mais também.
This little baby has lost its mom, but fortunately it finds it again because it would certainly die without her. There's another baby in the next scene that's coming up that's in exactly the same situation. Calls out for mom, and Mom comes and picks it up. Capybara are the world's largest rodents. They weigh in at over 100 pounds, and they move around in family groups. This is a nice big family. They're semi-aquatic. Their toes are webbed, and they get around quite well in the water. In fact, they enjoy it quite a bit. This is Mom and a baby out for a stroll along the beach. When capybara do go underwater, and they often do for safety purposes, they can stay under as long as 5 minutes. Capybara always seem to think that they're better than everyone else. They kind of look down at the nose at you. Another thing that's kind of interesting is they don't seem to be afraid of caiman, at least not the adults. Apparently the only thing that is in danger of being eaten is the babies. In fact, capybara tend to be more inquisitive than frightened of people even. One of the oddest creatures in the Pantanal is the maned wolf. It looks like a fox on stilts, and it eats both fruit and rodents. It's the tallest canid, measuring about 3 feet high at the shoulder. The largest animal in the forest, however, is the tapir. Now, the tapir can be up around 500 pounds or more, actually quite a bit more. There is another tapir other than the South American one, and that is out in Southeast Asia. The tapir kind of looks like a pig. It even looks a little bit like an elephant if you focus on the nose, which is prehensile. But its closest relatives are actually the horse and the rhinoceros. The tapir is nocturnal, and outside of the Pantanal it's almost impossible to see, but it can be seen fairly regularly in the Pantanal. There's that nose sticking up. The next animal looks like a pig, and it is. That next animal is going to be the white striped peccary. There's also a white-lipped peccary, which is a little bit smaller, but it is said to be more dangerous than the jaguar. The white-lipped peccary run around in herds of as many as 100 animals at a time, and if they charge you, you're in big trouble. There's another kind of peccary that only lived in Paraguay, and it was described entirely from fossil records and was thought to be extinct up until 1975, when it was rediscovered by scientists. Of course, the locals knew about this pig all along. There are a couple of different kinds of deer in the Pantanal. One is a marsh deer. It's a little bit larger. And then there's a little bit smaller brocket deer. This one happens to be a male. You can see his antlers up there. And he's following a female. The next thing is a little bit unusual. It's a mouse, that's not unusual, but he's swimming across a river in the Pantanal. No fish gulps him down, no hawk comes down and swoops down and catches him. And he's not gulped up by caiman or anything else. He makes it all the way across the river, no problems. These guys are just what they look like. They're the South American version of the raccoon. As a matter of fact, South America also has the North American version of the raccoon. Their South American version, however, is called the coati. When I was a kid, I learned the term coati mundi. Coati mundi means the coati is alone. Now, coatis are very seldom alone unless they happen to be single males. So the term has generally been changed from coati mundi to simply coati. This next animal is a black-striped tufted capuchin, and this particular species was the first non-ape primate seen using tools. In this case, he was cracking nuts on an anvil. For as far as we know, they haven't been doing that down in the Pantanal yet, but in other parts of Brazil they have. These are your traditional organ grinder monkeys, and they're extremely smart and very easy to train. And this one should look somewhat familiar to you. This species played the part of Dexter in A Night at the Museum.
Hey, Dexter, that's not funny. Give it back. Dexter, give... Don't. I know what you're thinking. Don't do it. Not a good idea. Not... Dexter, I need those. Hey, don't encourage him. You think you're funny for your friends, huh? You three guys, you think you got what? He's the ringleader and you're like a little audience? Yeah, no, don't do it, okay? Look at you!
This particular troop probably has about 40 members in it. I didn't get a chance to count them, but there were quite a few. And 40 is pretty typical. Look what he's doing. There is a hole in that tree, and he's sticking his hand down in the hole because it's filled with water. And he brings his hand up. The hand is wet now, and then he takes his thumb and he puts it into his mouth and he sucks the water off of his thumb. Let's see if we can't get a better view of that. Hand down in the hole, bring it up, get some water, bring it up, don't scratch. Now let's try it again. Hand down in the hole, get some water, bring it up. There it is. Drink it off the thumb. Lick it off the hand. Don't waste any. Of course, for this particular technique, it takes several tries to get very much water down. So it takes a couple of minutes at the hole for each one of these monkeys. And they do take turns coming down to this hole and getting a drink. I figure they have some kind of priority system set up for it. Next, we're going to get a little bit better shot of the face. A little scratch there. And then it's going to be back to the water hole. This guy seems to be overstaying his turn. There's someone who's a little bit antsy above him to get down to the water hole. These next monkeys are howlers, and so what's important about these animals is not so much what you see as what you hear. And what you hear is the loudest monkey around. You can hear them for a couple of miles. This is a troop of black howlers. Troops usually have about 10 members, although in this particular case I'm only seeing 3 or 4, and my guess is that there are some that are out of sight. They're called black howlers because the males are black. The females, however, are brown, so this is a female black howler monkey. What allows them to do their howling is an enlarged hyoid bone in their throat. That's why their throats are so thick. By world standards, this is only a medium-sized monkey, but in the Pantanal, this is the largest monkey that they have. It's about the size of a really big house cat or a small dog. Howler monkeys tend to be very cautious around people, and this howler monkey is watching me pretty closely. The male is nervous about my presence. People in Brazil do still eat monkeys, and the monkeys are aware of it. The diet of these monkeys consists almost entirely of leaves. These leaves are fairly low nutrition, and so these monkeys don't have a great deal of energy. The result of that is their howling behavior. You see, they have to defend their territory, but they need to do so at the least amount of expense in energy. The least amount of expense of energy is by howling. Another howler monkey can judge the size of their troop by how loud they are howling, and based on that, they have contests to decide who's going to be occupying what kind of territory. Both the black howler monkeys and the capuchin monkeys have prehensile tails. That is, their tails can be used to wrap around a branch, and so occasionally you'll find monkeys hanging by their tails. But if you take a look at old world monkeys, monkeys from Africa and Asia, you'll discover that none of them has a prehensile tail. Only New World monkeys know this particular trick. The next monkey is a black-tailed marmoset. It's restricted to the Pantanal area, and it has a sort of a high-pitched bird-like sound that it makes. It's diurnal, arboreal, and omnivorous, and they gouge out tree bark in order to extract the sap and gum from it. This species is the only Pantanal primate that gives birth to twins rather than to single offspring. And the tail does not appear to be prehensile. This next little animal looks like a cross between a rat and a kangaroo, or maybe a rabbit or something. Its rear hind quarters look quite distinctive, but its legs are so tall and spindly that it looks quite strange. This is an agouti, and it is a rodent. He's going the other way. Yeah. I thought he was going to go into the bush there. A favorite food of the agouti is the curry palm, which is in the next scene. The palm nuts of the palm tree are eaten by macaws. In fact, they eat quite a few of them, and also by monkeys. Monkeys, however, are sloppy eaters, and they drop the fruit to the ground, and when they do, the agouti gets them. Nothing is wasted. The Pantanal has lots of strange animals like the agouti, but it also has a number that seem quite familiar. For instance, there is one species of rabbit that you can find down there, and it looks very much like any cottontail that you've ever seen. This next animal should look familiar as well. It's a fox, and it's just a fox like any other that you might see in North America. At night, it looks almost identical to what you'd find in North America, but when we get around to looking at the color pattern in the day, you'll see that it's a little bit different. It's a lighter color, more brown and less gray, certainly not a red fox. The fox's behavior in South America reminded me a great deal of the jackals in Africa. When you see a jackal in Africa, you always see two. The male and the female both go out hunting together, and they're never very far apart. And that's true of the South American fox as well. Some animals that you hear about in South America are familiar, and some of them are strange. And then again, every once in a while you'll hear a story about something that's truly bizarre.